Paper Mario might be one of the most frustrating franchises ever made. In a few short years, it went from being one of my favorite franchises of all time to just being mush. Like, that's the best way I can describe it. It's like we started out with a bacon cheeseburger. That's awesome. Who in the right mind would turn down a bacon cheeseburger? And they were like, okay, great. Everyone loved that. How do we make it better? And then they put some caramelized onions on there. They got some ketchup and some mayo, which is just, holy shit. Best sandwich of all time. Amazing. Then they decided, okay, everyone loves burgers, so naturally, fuck burgers. We're making a hot dog now. And, well, actually, the hot dog is pretty good too. And then they decided, okay, everyone loves burgers, everyone loved the hot dog. What do we do now? Well, how about we make a soggy, day-old taco that's been left out in the sun for 7 years? And it's like, what is this? Why would you make this? This is garbage. No, this is garbage. And then they're like, okay, well, let's make another taco. And they make a slightly less shitty taco. You know, it's got some nice parts. The cheese is okay sometimes. There's some nice beef in there. But the rest of it is just horrible bullshit. And you gotta ask yourself, why can't this just all be beef and cheese? What's with all this other shit? Do I really want to eat all of this just so I can get a small taste of cheese? No. This is garbage. It's garbage. It's all garbage. And it's not even like taco is necessarily a fundamentally bad idea, but it's not automatically good either. You gotta finesse it until it's good, you know? You gotta work out the kinks, and unfortunately, they just didn't. Now, a lot of you are gonna say, man, you just like burgers because you have nostalgia, and you were 9 years old when you ate them. Bitch. Let me learn you something. If me at the age of 22 didn't have the patience for taco, there is no way in hell that me as a kid would have put up with this shit. I would have quit video games entirely at that point. And while we're on the topic, I also tried a cream cheese bagel when I was 9. I didn't like it then, and I don't like it now, so yeah. If you think everyone just blindly enjoys games because they were kids when they played them, figure out that shit. Many legitimate arguments against these newer games have been reduced to these cheap, lame-ass strawman arguments. A lot of people have this idea that we literally just want the exact same game over and over, that we just want TTYD 2. It'd be nice to see a similar game, and I don't really see how that's unreasonable, you know, because that's kind of the point of a sequel. But aside from that, they don't really seem to understand that there are genuine fundamental flaws with these games that prevent them from being fun, and it pisses people off. Now, don't get me wrong, even if they pulled off the formula well, fans would probably hate them because of how bubbly and inoffensive the stories were, not to mention the limitations on original characters. But they didn't pull it off well. They made it a pain in the ass, and that's why I call them the taco games. Get it? In Sticker Star and Color Splash, the attacks are consumables and the battles don't give experience. They just give you some coins which you could have found anywhere else, and some hammer power that in the long run almost never turns out to be an issue. Do you know what that means? That means every battle is a half-minute timeout where the game grinds to a halt and you're not really that much better off when you finish that. And on the off chance that anyone thinks pointing out that the old Mario platformers don't have XP is a legitimate argument, it's really not. In Super Mario Bros., you jump on a Goomba and he's dead in a split second. Boom. Then you go about your day. In New Paper Mario, you touch a Goomba and now you're playing this shitty WarioWare minigame to kill the baby Shy Guy for very little reward. And don't try running away either, because instead of being based on your actions, it's a coin flip. So yeah, welcome to New Paper Mario. It's not like the first 3 games were flawless either, but at a fundamental level, they rarely felt like a chore to play. You always had options, and it rarely wasted your time deliberately. TTYD had backtracking, but at least it usually made sense from a story perspective, and it wasn't just, hey, remember this stupid minigame? Well, if you want to beat this stupid boss, you need to play the stupid minigame again, and you gotta do it perfectly to get an item, because you need special items to beat boss, because it has nothing to do with skill, and this is how Nintendo makes video games now. Or intelligence system, whatever. Everything felt like it served a concrete purpose, and the stories made you really want to continue, and that's really all I ask from these games. Give me a story that I care about, and give me gameplay that doesn't feel like it's yanking on my ballsack every 2 seconds, and apparently, that is an unreasonable request. The reason I've taken you on this long introduction is to contextualize Origami King within my realm of existence. The most important thing for a game reviewer is to establish where they're coming from and what they value in a game so that the viewer understands why they feel the way they do and can contextualize their opinion within those circumstances. Now, if you've been here a while, a lot of what I'm saying is stuff that I've already said. But if you're new, welcome to Phantom Bane. Kick your feet up, sip some mimosa, enjoy your stay. but no free refills. Needless to say, many of us wanted a return to roots, you know? A game with the style and atmosphere of the older games with a pragmatic battle system that didn't suck balls. And some of us were excited because a totally 100% legit reliable leaker said that that was going to happen. Then they showed off this boss fight with a roll of tape and I was like, oh no. Nevertheless, a small part of my brain was going, hey, maybe they learned from their mistakes this time. Maybe they made an actually good taco. You don't know until you try. So I bought this new taco for 90 Canadian dollars, and I gotta be real with you, it's actually not bad. Origami Bitch starts on this ominous note, setting you up for a creepier, more audacious Paper Mario adventure. You enter a completely deserted Toad Town after being invited to a festival. Then you enter Peach's castle and this creepy folded up perversion of Princess Peach comes out and starts talking about all sorts of weird shit like exterminating toads, which doesn't sound like a bad idea at all if I'm honest. Then she drops you down a pit where you meet Bowser's minions, who have also been locked up. It's a pretty strong start and promises a darker, creepier take on Paper Mario that is long overdue. Then it makes you take out the Joy-Cons and I'm like, ah man, I'm getting kinda tired of shoehorning motion into everything where it doesn't need it. Fortunately, you can disable it, but since my Power Aids controller is, well, AIDS, I ended up just using the Joy-Cons in the end anyway. Let's address the obvious things first. The aesthetic and universe are still putting a lot of chips on having paper be a literal canonical part of the world. There is very little in the way of original characters. There aren't a whole lot of liberties taken with the established Mario characters. Most of them are just the base versions in cheap cosplay like Mario Party or something. There is, however, an original villain, Prince Ollie. Yeah, Prince Ollie. Prince Ollie is the Origami Prince, I guess king now that he stole the castle. He's hell-bent on ridding the world of toads. Good job, good for him. Mario teams up with Olivia, who is Ollie's sister, in order to stop him. The biggest problem I had with Color Splash is that there isn't really a looming evil. The black paint was literally just poison that made bad things happen with no explanation behind it. The story was basically, Bowser is a moron and he did something stupid. Funny game, haha. It made the story feel dumb and didn't incentivize pushing forward because there is no real bad guy with a particular and concrete want, which is a mistake that I think they've learned from. Ollie's influence can be felt almost everywhere. The giant ribbons that keep the castle suspended on top of the mountain can be seen in almost every area. All the enemies are origami perversions dreamed up by his twisted mind. What really separates Origami King from the previous two games is how far out of its way it goes to avoid being a piece of shit garbage. Most of the time. There's no consumable attacks, no degenerate boss fights that require a special item to beat. It is based much more on skill. It is very much a thinking man's game in a way that Color Splash only wishes it was. Origami King decided to make a new battle system which might look complicated, but it has a distinct advantage over Color Splash and Sticker Star in that it's actually fun this time. You have limited time to line up enemies in an optimal pattern to allow you to just fucking annihilate them. This might look intimidating at first, but Mario is famous for games that are incredibly easy to approach for as many people as possible, and you get the hang of the ring system pretty quickly. I think almost every normal enemy battle is supposed to allow you to kill all the enemies in one turn if you get the pattern correctly. Sometimes you might panic and not be able to line them up in time, which is why they allow you to quite literally buy time with your coins. There are a shitload of tools at your disposal. I assume running away is still based on a coin flip, but I don't actually know that because I don't think I ever encountered a battle that I felt the need to run away from in the first place. You also get partners occasionally. They come and go as the story needs them to. They attack on their own during battles, but half the time they just miss, which is annoying. There's a Bob-omb with amnesia, there's this archaeologist whose name I completely forget. It's probably like Professor Toad or some shit. Oh look, it is. Who'da thunk it? Then there's Magic Koopa. Well, at least he's on my side this time, and he's not just there to be a scrotal cyst like in Color Splash. Then there's the boss fights, where instead of arranging the bosses, you arrange the tiles so you can walk along them, grabbing power-ups, activating the fucko moves, getting tips, and physically fighting them before they knock your ass back to the perimeter. The boss fights are pretty cool too. If you're gonna make me fight a fucking box of pencil crayons, you have to at least make it cool. But guess what? They did. Yeah, the only annoying thing is that in order to use the super moves against them, it makes you use motion controls in the middle of the fight, assuming you forgot to turn them off, which is terrifying because of how janky and fucking awful they can be. like when you had to launch the rubber bitch boy into the stratosphere. I wasn't even sure exactly what I was supposed to do here at first, and it was even worse because the controls were clipping all over the place. You can't have me fight a tense boss fight for 10 minutes and then leave the entire outcome of the fight in the hands of these broken ass fuckster motion controls. And if the overworld is any indication, turning the motion controls off means that everything takes longer because you gotta drag the arms with the stick. I don't know which is worse. It's completely testicular either way. Thankfully, the game compensates for this by being pretty easy. I feel like they could have had the confidence to make it harder if they could safely assume that the motion controls actually work properly, but it's 2020, and we can never assume that. The most challenging part of the battle system is trying to avoid overthinking it because the solution to most things is usually very simple. There's still no experience or a proper leveling system. The only reward is coins and confetti, which is basically a reskin of the paint hammer from Color Splash. But hey, at least it looks cool. You can, however, use the money to buy legitimate upgrades that make you better in an actually measurable way. I will always miss the old battle system, but at least they finally figured out that if you're gonna get rid of a good thing, you have to replace it with another good thing. Unfortunately, the upgrades are somewhat limited, which puts a hard cap on just how upgraded you can make yourself, but nevertheless, the incentive to battle is still much greater than the previous two games. And the game's pretty easy anyways, so it's not like you really need it. By the way, before I forget, I saw some people say that no XP is good because it means no more grinding. Well, let me just say that if you actually thought the first two games were grindy, then you are literally made of bitch. Sorry. Origami King is an incredibly atmospheric game. Once you get over the fact that paper is a canonical and thematic focal point of the game, you'll find the visuals are still really impressive. The lighting is fucking awesome. The water is inexplicably beautiful. I don't get why a Paper Mario game would put so many chips on water graphics, but they did, and it's great. It feels like the good parts of Color Splash's graphics, but better. One of the things I enjoyed the most was literally just exploring the worlds and getting all the little things. Of course, most of the collectibles are either coins or these bonus statues for the museum, but again, the coins get actual upgrades, so it could be worse. You can also find the occasional health upgrade as well. And there are these toads hidden everywhere, many of whom have been folded into origami perversions of their former selves. And they actually help out in battles, which is pretty sweet. The world is pretty cool too. Instead of everything being sectioned off by a map screen, effectively turning Paper Mario into a course clear game, which was stupid, the game now operates on a singular unified world, which is great. All of this gives the game a great deal of replay value. And speaking of replay value, I've heard that if you go through the whole game without equipping any upgrades and without dying once or something like that, your file gets a special badge. Yeah. Really, there's a big boss emblem in Paper Mario. Well, you can stick that emblem up your ass. This game is good, but not that good. Pretty good. The worlds are pretty neat too. You go to a hot spring in the sky, you go to Peach's yacht to piece together the horrors that took place there before you arrived, you go to a vast desert, you can go to Has-Been Hotel. There's an entire part of the game that's a tribute to Zelda where you ride around on the sea, looking for these islands with special statues. Also, you can access a secret underground layer where you do trials to prove your power, wisdom, and courage. And in behind that, there's an ice cavern full of block puzzles. Yeah, and I didn't even talk about the music yet, but let me tell you, it kicks ass. You have the boss music for the Velemental fights. I don't know how you pronounce that. You have the music for the annoying little Goomba bastards running around. You got the Starman remix, which is badass, and a lot of atmospheric tunes. It's great. In fact, it's almost as good as T2ID. Unfortunately, the overall tone of the game still leaves a lot to be desired. Its initial promise of a darker, more audacious Paper Mario didn't quite deliver, all things considered. There are a handful of profound moments, especially near the end, but it still has this overall feel of silliness, which isn't an objectively bad thing, but you'd think with the premise of a genocidal origami maniac that there might have been a little more in the way of heart-wrenching, thought-provoking beats. I won't say that the story is bad, because it's actually pretty solid. But what about the characters? Most of the characters just kind of exist and are either just incidental to the plot or gameplay, or they make some weird self-aware or snarky jokes. This guy thanks you for saving him so he can commit to working his shitty store for 18 hours a day. I mean, I can fold you back up, dude, if you really don't enjoy your life that much. Well, to the game's credit, it's actually a lot more fucked up the more you think about it. There's a part in this game where this hole punch removes all these toads' faces, and then does the same to you when you fight them. The inherent silliness of paper being the literal fabric of the universe does undercut this somewhat, but it's still freaky. Then there's this part in Bowser's Castle where these creepy black paper cutouts try to kill you. Then this shadowy hand grabs Olivia and you have to fight it, which almost felt like a reference to the Shadow Queen. Until it made you play rock, paper, scissors with it. That's the problem with these new games. They still don't allow creepy or profound moments to simmer in your brain. They keep undercutting these moments with some silly visual gag or something. And it's not like I want a 100% edgy and gritty Paper Mario either. I prefer games with a balance. If there was a Paper Mario game that was 100% edgy and serious, it wouldn't fare much better. I'm really split on the humor. The game will regularly make you smile. There's a ton of funny and great dialogue in addition to the physical humor. The problem is it often feels like it's trying way too hard. The writing is in a weird limbo zone. It almost feels like a toss-up of Mother dialogue and Color Splash dialogue. That's probably not a great way to describe it, but it's the best I got. In the older games, a lot of the humor felt more character-driven. It came through in their unique personalities. In Origami King, a lot of the characters just feel like a conduit for a grab bag of funny dialogue that the writers accumulated over a few days of brainstorming. It doesn't feel as natural. It is still funny though. And to be honest, I didn't notice that many stupid paper puns. Probably because Olivia is an actual person instead of a stupid ass paint bucket. The bosses also have some pretty distinctive attitudes, which is cool. The tape roller has this greaser thing going on. The rubber band is the gayest man of all time. And the 3-hole punch kinda has a disco thing going on. Now this is a nitpick, but why doesn't Mario have a voice? Other characters have voices. Luigi has a voice. The Toads have voices. Bowser has a voice. Why not Mario? Can he really not just give me a yeah wahoo let's a go or something? Color Splash did that too. I don't know, it's just weird. He's the main man. I feel like that's kind of important. I think the way I feel about Origami King can best be described by Super Mario Bros. 2. You know, the Super Mario Bros. Game that nobody gives a shit about. As a kid, people would always talk about 1 and 3. Not one person I knew ever mentioned 2. It weirded me out. It was like the shady uncle who killed someone in the 90s who we weren't supposed to talk about. When I got older, I eventually played it and found that it was a much different video game than the original, or even most Mario platformers since. Probably because it was a modified version of Doki Doki Panic, which, funnily enough, I think is actually referenced in Origami King. Now I like Super Mario Bros. 2, but it's just weird. Even without the prior knowledge of Doki Doki Panic, I saw this game and I could just tell that something wasn't right. And that's kind of how I feel about Origami King. It's way different thematically than the original games. But it still manages to be good by virtue of being good, unlike these games. Origami King is not the Paper Mario redemption arc I was hoping for. It's not quite up to snuff with the original 3 for a number of reasons. I wanted more stakes and more emotion throughout the game instead of saving 90% of it for the end. I wanted something that more carefully balanced humor and drama, and it didn't quite manage that. At a fundamental level, however, it is a fun game. The dialogue will make you smile, and the story is actually not that bad. And because of all these things, I can definitely say that it's better than these games, and all things considered, I can confidently say that Origami King is a good video game. I keep hearing about the restrictions that were put on this game by higher-ups in all the interviews with Tanabe and such, and while I don't know how much of it is legit, I honestly believe they did the best job they could within those restrictions. If you're conflicted about this game, I would wait for it to go a little cheaper. Right now it's a full price game and I don't feel that it's necessarily good enough to warrant that. It's more of a gem than a big ruby, but it is a nice gem. This game did do a great job of cutting out unavoidable horse shit that made me want to die and adding enough charm to make me want to live, and the end result is a solid video game. Not a masterpiece, but most definitely a piece. You know, a good one. Congratulations, Tanabe. You made a good taco.